everyone. Welcome to Breaking the Silence, a podcast produced by Angels Protection Inc., where we amplify the voices that challenge inequity, advance healing, and reimagine leadership in spaces where influence shapes lives. I'm your host, Makaila Davis, founder and chairwoman of Angels Protection Inc. And today's episode is part of our Men Leading in Academia series, where we spotlight men whose leadership extends beyond titles, men who are reshaping academic spaces, mental health systems, and communities through service, scholarship, and integrity. This series exists because representation in academia matters, because who leads determines who feels seen, and because healing-centered leadership is essential in a world that often demands productivity without care. And today's guest embodies that truth. Dr. Brian L. Turner is a clinical psychologist, scholar, educator, policy leader, and community advocate whose work blends identity, culture, and healing into transformative leadership across academia and beyond. He currently serves as a department head and associate professor of psychology at Xavier University, Louisiana, where he also holds the prestigious Melba F. Martinez Endowed Professorship in Social and Behavioral Sciences. In this role, Dr. Turner leads with a deep commitment to student development, culture-responsive scholarship, and the mental health of historically marginalized populations, particularly Black men navigating higher education. Clinically, Dr. Turner is a licensed clinical psychologist and founder of Moments of Truth, LLC, where he has worked across diverse settings and populations. His clinical passion centers on supporting Black males and adolescents through adulthood, addressing masculinity, identity development, stigma, trauma, and wellness through culturally grounded care. Academically, Dr. Turner has published peer-reviewed journal articles, book chapters, and technical reports on community health, masculinity, identity development, mentorship, and mental health in higher education. His scholarship is grounded in multicultural training and examines how culture systems and lived experiences shape mental health outcomes. During his tenure at Xavier University, Louisiana, his research was focused on Black male experiences in higher education, Black women and risky behaviors, mental health at HBCUs, and identity development. Scholarship that bridges research, teaching, and community engagement. In recognition of his service and leadership, Dr. Turner received the 2024 Xavier University Faculty of Excellence Award in Service. He also serves as policy director for the New Orleans Youth Alliance, where he helps prepare the next generation of leaders to serve New Orleans and the world with intention and equity. Dr. Turner's community leadership extends to board service with the Metropolitan Human Services District, City Park Improvement Association, and the Arts Council of New Orleans. He also serves as co-chair of the Ethics Committee for the Association of Black Psychologists and as a mentor with the Silverback Society. He's a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated Sigma Lambda chapter, where he has served as chapter historian, as vice president-elect, and was named 2023 Charles C. Teamer Alpha Man of the Year. He also served as public program chairperson for the 78th Annual Southwestern Regional Convention. A graduate of Southern University at Baton Rouge and Jackson State University, Dr. Turner is also alumnus of multiple leadership institutes, including ULEAD, NORLI, and the Leaders of Color Leadership Institute. Most importantly, Dr. Turner is a devoted father to his daughter Blair Layla and a proud dog dad to Von Duke Bailey Turner. He also puts it his best. Through his work, he seeks to blend every chapter of his life: athlete, son, psychologist, mentor, educator, brother, man of faith, into opportunities that motivate, educate, and activate. And we are honored to welcome you, Dr. Turner, to Breaking the Science podcast.
Thank you, Makaila. I really appreciate that introduction, even though it's not I shared with you, so I know all of it already. But it is great to be here. I'm so honored that you sought to have this conversation with me and include me in the work. Prepared to have a conversation, and apparently so is my dog.
Yeah, no,
You must have heard you call his name. Yeah,
yeah, he probably did.
yeah.
So I kind of like want to start off too and ask you like, what drew you to psychology, mental health, and how did your early academic experiences shape your commitment to Black male wellness?
Yeah, so as you stated, I am a native of New Orleans, Louisiana. And so early in my life, Makaila, I went from a family situated elementary school where my mother went to the school and her siblings, and then my siblings and myself went to this school. And I did pretty well academically. And um, I was noticing at that age, fourth and fifth grade, that, there seemed to be things going on in my community that people just seem to be struggling with. Didn't seem to have a, reason. And I'm my little, 9, 10-year-old head, I'm making it up. And I had the opportunity to attend Isidore Newman High School. Well, I started in the sixth grade when I went there. And so that claim to fame is that my high school quarterback was Peyton Manning. And so in that realm, I now moved from this predominantly Black, usually lower SES elementary school to this now historically Jewish, predominantly white, and affluent school. Most of my classmates had historically had the means to survive. And I'm now seeing my classmates who I thought had the means to survive. I see them having some of the same struggles that I saw people in my community, predominantly Black, low SES, struggle with. And so I began to, once again, now my 12-year-old mind is like, okay, so why is this happening? Why does it not seem like just being white or being, having some money? Why does that not fix it? And I had some classmates who their parents were in the mental health field. And as I sat and listened to them and kind of, followed what they had done, it began to dawn on me what I felt I might want to do. And I had thought to pursue law in New Orleans. The legal profession is kind of the upper echelon, many people might say, of the creme de la creme of the city in terms of making it and being successful. But I had families who had done that. I was like, I don't want to be an attorney. Thought about being a physician, and I just didn't really see myself dealing with medicine that way. And the more I engaged and kind of dug into the field of mental health, it became kind of clear that's what I wanted. And so, really, honestly, I get to Southern University in 1995, fall of 1995. One of the classes I took was African American child. And in that class, I read an article by Dr. Joseph L. White, 1970 article called Towards a Black Psychology. And in that article, it spoke to me. It spoke to the experiences of African Americans, especially African American boys in the United States, and the experiences that had very significant impacts on the way we experience ourselves and how persons outside of the Black community would experience us. And so at that time, and I'll share a little personal anecdote, at that time, Dr. White became my mentor through his writings. And so fast forward to 2007, while I'm on my pre-doctoral internship at the University of Akron in Akron, Ohio, I was able to introduce Dr. White in the first ever Black Male Summit. And from there, he took me under his wing until his passing in 2017. He was my mentor, which is also significant because my daughter was born in 2017. And I was actually planning a trip to try to bring my daughter to see him as he was getting a little older. And so that is how I came to be at this point because little guy from originally Minnesota by way of California and who was known as the godfather of Black psychology, he wrote an article that spoke to me. And from then on, it became my life's work to, in many ways, extend the work he had done and just to be a part of the work he had put his effort into to make sure that I would have a place someday to do the work I'm doing.
No, I love that. And like from this one article that shaped your whole trajectory in your career. And I think that really does like touch on how important research is within underserved communities and doing peer-reviewed journals. And like that really shaped your whole momentum on how you are where you are
Yeah,
today.
it did. It really did. And I'll share it with you. I use it when I teach a class called Black Psychology. So if you want it, I got it. I'll send it to you.
No, definitely.
I got
Um,
you.
and also too, like your research, it explores masculinity, identity development, community health, and mental health in higher education. What findings have stayed with you the most?
The most significant findings that I actually stand on because it validated and it supported existing research, but it extended the work I do now. The most important thing for Black men to be successful, specifically in higher education, is for them to connect with Black men in higher education who are successful. In essence, it's the village, right? When Black men are in school, and if we think about this in the holistic way of what we experience, for so many ways, Black men in America have been told we're not supposed to be intelligent. We're not supposed to be smart. We're not supposed to be articulate. That in so many ways, it is supposed to be our sexual prowess or our brawn and our strength that should bear out. And so I often talk about this when I do comparison lectures on the John Henryism effect, right? That so many Black men are taught and told and have been made to think that it is simply what you can do with your physicality and not with your mentality. And so that has stayed large and prominent in so much what I do and the work we do because it also goes back to the kind of idiom of if you can't see it, then you can't be it. And I think when we talked about me coming and visiting with you, that was the part that I thought about the most, is that how often do young black men get to see black men in successful positions that are not, in a very simple way, running, jumping, singing, and dancing,
Mm.
right? So if all I see myself as a rapper, or an athlete or an entertainer, then what am I supposed to think about these other kind of professional spaces? And I love to quote the fact that Biggie Small said it best. You know, many young black men are told either you sell crack rock or you have a wicked jump shot, right? That the reality of what it takes to be successful is oftentimes whittled down to very minimal and very menial tasks, right? I was a former athlete. I played football in high school and college. I loved it, but I always understood that there was something else I could be doing in life. And so many of my friends, as we kind of gone through our trajectory, we all have come to realize that football was just a stepping stone. It was a tool to get to where we should be in life. And so that piece right there is who you connect with. And that's why many times when I've been on campuses of PWIs or even HBCUs, one of the things I try to foster is the space that black men can find connections with other black men. And of course, if we play into this, sometimes we have to remove the homoeroticism of black men being in spaces where they can be close, they can care for each other. You know, it doesn't have to play into those things, right? We should be able to do just like the Maasai warriors do in Africa. They go into battle holding hands. They pray over each other. They hold each other tight, right? But then you look at basketball teams and football teams, even gangs in a lot of ways. They hold each other down at a level that, we don't see as often as we should, but we have to put the positive spin on it, right? That's why I try to mentor as many young black men as I can. That's why I do the mentorship with Silverback Society, you know. That's why I try to put myself in spaces so that young black men will be available, to touch me, to see me, to connect with me. So yeah, that's what holds true, is that if we give black men the connection to other black men who are successful and who know how to navigate and negotiate these spaces, then they'll be all right. They'll be successful.
No, I love that. And I think what stuck with me, what you just said the most is um, if black man, if a black man can't see it, he can't be it. And he also needs that village of leaders. So seeking that
Yeah,
out, that could kind of help him because if he can't see someone that's a professor in a field, how could he know that he could do that? Representation.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so I really love like how you touched on that. And also too, why is culture-centered research especially critical when working with Black students and communities?
Well, Mikael, it's the very crux of what happens in research, right? It's the ideal of who's going to tell the story, the lion or the hunter. Well, it depends on who wins, right? So if I can conduct research that says that black men are unintelligent, they're just sexual beings. I mean, when we think about it, right, the whole idea of marijuana being bad was based upon the idea of black men who want to smoke marijuana and want to have sex with white women, or white women going to smoke marijuana and they want to have sex with black men, right? So when we think about it, the idea of culturally informed, culturally relevant, culturally like grounded research is really about people telling the real stories about what they experience and what they have happening to them, right? Too many times in our history in this country and across this world, African Americans and people of color had other people outside of their group doing research, conducting research, and then telling the story. So they were able to lie. They were able to flub. They were able to tell untruths about people, right? When we think about just here in America, the Tuskegee experiment, when we think about Henrietta Lacks, right? These are all studies that occurred that were government sanctioned, that were okayed, and they lied and they hurt Black people. So if we do not take the onus upon ourselves to conduct research in our own communities, we'll always wind up being told or having our stories told from the hunter, because we'll always be the hunter.
I agree with that. And I guess it also ties into like my next question too with leadership in academia. As a department head at Xavier University, Louisiana, how do you balance administrative leadership with care-centered mentorship?
So I got a message, Michaela. Don't tell him I told you, but it's not Xavier, it's Xavier. All right. So just I didn't go to Xavier. I went to Southern Jack State, but I'm just saying, if you come down here and you say Xavier, they're gonna look at you like you got two, three heads, okay? Um, you know, I don't know if I ever thought of myself as a leader. I always thought myself as a servant, right? Come from a decent sized family. I have four brothers. My mom had lots of cousins, aunts, uncles, and all that. And so I always enjoyed serving. And what I found is that when you serve people, you treat them well, they'll basically do whatever you tell them,
Mm.
right? If they know you'll take care of them, if they know that you got them, then that turns into leadership. And so I've always sought to be a good servant of those who are in need. And so as a department head, as a executive, as a director, policy, and various other capacities I've had, even within the fraternity, I've been, on boards where I've held leadership roles. I always thought of myself as what I need to do to serve first. And I can be the first one in the door, helping move tables. I can sweep, I can mop, I can clean tables, and I'll be the last one in the building helping to, restore the facility to its cleanliness and its rightful space. And so I always think about what would I want my kids to receive? What would I want to receive, right? How would I want my mom to be treated? These are all kind of cliche type statements, but that's really what drives my leadership. And so I truly see myself as a servant leader. I truly endear myself to understand and think about providing a service to individuals, to a person or a family. Oftentimes, when families come to Xavier, I explain to them from the beginning, I'm not an agent of the institution. I'm going to advocate for Xavier University, but I need to hear your needs because if you tell me your needs are not being met here, I can't lie to you. And so I've had families say, well, hey, it sounds like Xavier may not be the place for you. But if you would like to try, I'll be here. But it sounds like maybe your needs will be met to us. And so I always think about that. Who wants to be lied to? Who wants to be fed an untruth? And so as a leader, I'm constantly making sure in my head and in my mind and my spirit that at no point in time can someone say that I led them astray, that I led them wrong. So I'm always trying to provide a service because if I provide you a service, then you don't have to question what I'm doing.
And to me, I think that's the best leadership, being a servant leader, always showing up for those that you know need
Mhm.
that help, and not leading them astray, like you said.
Yeah.
Um, and that kind of goes into two also, what responsibility do academic leaders have to address mental health beyond counseling centers?
I'm gonna be very, I don't know, maybe an unpopular opinion, but I don't think every professional has to have that duty. Um, I think sometimes people have to know who should have that duty. Because if it's not them, they should at least know, hey, this is outside of my wheelhouse. Let me connect you with the persons on campus or in the community that can better serve you. Now, with that being said, that's the minimum level of care that I think every professional should have. They should understand if I have students or someone that I'm in some way in some type of hierarchical role, and I need to know what services I should be able to make available to them, whether it be directly within the command of what I have survey over, or if it's to recommend them or to refer them out to a source. And I say that because I think sometimes people forget being a psychologist, being a counselor, being a social worker, these are not fly by night situations. These are not things that you can simply take 18 hours of course credit and then guide people through their life. And so I want to say that I don't in any way condone people seeking alternative methods of assisting people. When it comes to mental health, give it to a psychologist, give it to someone who's licensed, credentialed, and ensure to have that conversation with that person. If you just want to help somebody get a job, that's fine. If you just want to help somebody, be better at organizing home, that's fine. But I think we also have to start to put some parameters. And I say this because I think all too often we have people who really care about folks and they really want to do a good job, but they don't have the skills. They don't have the training. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the capacity. They don't have the ability. So we shouldn't ask them that. I'm not going to ask my daughter to drive me to Pennsylvania. She ain't got that capacity. But there might be a day when she does, and until that day comes, she still ain't driving me,
Right.
right? So we have to be aware of the limitations. And I put this in a context, Makaila, when we see people say stuff like we should arm teachers.
Mm.
What? No, teachers are going through enough. You want to give a teacher a gun
Right.
and ask them to be checking people's mental health? No, there should be limits on what we ask people to do, and it should only be put in situations where people are given ways to make the best decision possible with what they have. So I think folks need to be honest about who should have that opportunity, but we should be making sure that persons have the information, that people have the conduit by which they can share that information, and ultimately that people are able to recognize the signs of when they need to share that information. So to me, I ain't trying to give everybody the skills. I want everybody to know who they should be contacting.
I think that's really important too. And like you just said, and you touched on giving folks that information on who to
Hmm.
contact a licensed professional. Everyone
Yeah,
can give mental health care. And then sometimes folks, they try to go to family members or friends to, I guess you could say, like to vent, but really you need a psychologist or you need a
right.
psychiatrist. You need someone licensed that could help you and process through what you're going through. So, uh,
Exactly. Exactly. And look, I will say this too, because I love that people care, right? I don't ever want people to not care. But there's a big difference between when you care about someone and you can help them, but when you care about someone and you can hurt them.
mm,
And giving therapeutic suggestions or thoughts or guidance to someone and that's not your field, that's why I draw them.
no, I really appreciated that perspective. And I think that more folks need to ensure that they're disseminating that information on who to contact because there's many organizations that do that work for free, nonprofits or very low cost if if that's a barrier. um, and also too, much of your work it centers on mental health within HBCUs. So why are HBCUs uniquely positioned to support Black student wellness?
So I think once again, if we just look at the historical relevance of HBCUs and the mission, right? It provides a place where these could be the petri dishes and the true exploration and examination, kind of hubs for doing this work. Largely, and at this point, we do have associations at ABSI, Association of Black Psychologists, and we have the National Multicultural Conference and Summit, and we have a lot of smaller entities around the country. But the reality is that we've not yet ever really taken ourselves the task to truly examine and catalog and find a space to really talk about the Black psychological space in America, right? We've had great scholars, Dr. Naim Akbar, Dr. Janet Helms, and Dr. Thomas and his brother Will Parham, and Dr. Joseph White, and we've had so many, right? But we need to really settle down. What is like Black psychological profile? Right? Does Black personality exist in much the same way as we study personality from Jung and Watson and Carl Rogers, right? Do we live the same? Do we have these same experiences? And in so many ways, what's similar and what's the same, that's not a problem. But in so many ways, I don't know if we've truly touched on and examined where differences lie and how we should respond to such. So for me, the historically Black college university setting gives us the capacity to have these unique conversations and to examine these things without feeling as though they are being trampled on or not respected. And so I think HBCUs are uniquely charged to have that conversation while taking the expertise and knowledge we have and combining it with some of the values and some of the things that we have here in America and crafting out a real message around what the Black psychological experience is about. Because as we have it, we're not a monolith, right? African Americans, people of color are not monolithic. We don't all think the same. But there are some shared components that I think we need to explore. We need to explore what does it mean to be Black? Who gets to decide? And what does it mean to be Black in America, right? What does it mean to be a Black man, to be a Black heterosexual man, to be a Black same gender loving male, right? What does it mean to be a Black same gender loving man who still has a faith in God and believes in his belief system, right? I don't know if we really have done that to justice, right? And I think that's what HBCUs can and should be doing in many of these spaces. And to my knowledge, most of us have, but we don't usually get the research and the funding dollars to make this widespread, right? So that's why I think HBCUs become the hub, and it's also rooted in the fact that that's what they've always done, right? Many of our HBCUs are land grant institutions created between 1860 and 1880, which meant that many institutions were there to provide a training ground for African Americans who were still studying mainly agricultural, kind of forays. And over time, as we've changed and as we've grown, we see things that are more modernized on our campuses. We see the update and upgrade. But at the end of the day, have we really examined what these things and these transitions, what have they done for Black people?
No, I appreciate that. And then also too, what does healthy masculinity look like in leadership?
Wow. The first thing I would like to say, Michaela, is that healthy masculinity in leadership is someone who is very altruistic, right? I was just talking to a colleague today and she made a comment about maybe she should consider going. So I said, well, let me know and I'll write you. She said, what? She was surprised. I said, I can't hold you here. I was like, I would rather foster a relationship with you based upon positivity and help you and assist you to move on where you want to go. I said, I don't want you to go, but if you say that's what you need, I'm going to help you achieve the goals you want. So I believe in truly as a leader being willing to and able to support other people with no desire for anything in return. It's not about me. Dr. Turner has his degree. He has rank and tenure. He has all this. That. I'm not asking for anybody to give me something. I want people to do the work that they're supposed to do. And so my first thing is altruism. Secondly, I work on my own awareness. To thine own self be true. I cannot show up every day for my colleagues, for students, for my daughter, for my family, if I don't be honest with myself about what's going on. I have to tell myself the truth about when somebody doesn't make me happy. But I also take time to acknowledge and adore those who take time to make me feel special in and of themselves. And so I really think a lot about just being true to myself. What really makes me feel good? What doesn't feel good? What do I want? What do I need? And then lastly, I believe in being as professional as possible. I love the joke and clown, but we got to keep it between the lines when it comes down to our professional spaces, right? And so I'm always going to be willing to say, hey, let's make this look good. Let's make it feel good because it's still a representation of us. So for me, altruism, being true to myself, and that idealism of let's take this to the next level. I'm always trying to level up. Always trying to take us to the next level, right? I need my students to know we're gonna make it. We're gonna do what we're supposed to do. And that takes hard work. And so those are the things that I look at in terms of being the leaders of Black men. I stay grounded in. I surround myself.
No, I love that. And that kind of goes into my next question. So you're an active member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. How has the fraternity membership shaped your leadership journey?
Wow. Um, I am always humbled when I'm at convention, when I'm around brothers, the ominence of Alpha and the role that Alpha has played in this country, the leaders, the significant achievements of the men of Alpha, my brothers, the roles we play in the most nebulous and obscure corners of the world where we have an impact and we're shaping the world. So for me, what Alpha has done, it's just reiterated to me that I can. That there's a body of men who stand firm with like-mindedness about what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. And so I feel firm. I stand confident that when I've taken this oath to my brotherhood, to my fraternity, that it means something more than just wearing some letters. And so I look to those men who have been in Alpha, the Paul Robesons and the Dr. Martin Luther Kings and the Thurgood Marshalls and our Jules and just so many brothers. I'm gonna forget them all, but it's so many, right? And I ain't putting no shit on nobody else, but they know who leads. They know who takes the lead. I stand firm on it that's what guides me. That I can stand firm that brothers is at the pace and they set the stage and they've led the way. And even if I have to chart a path that nobody else has done before, I have the capacity to do so.
Mm, I love that. And then also too, in what ways has Alpha Phi Alpha reinforced your commitment to service, mentorship, and academic excellence?
Yeah. 7 men,
Mm,
as a good mentor of mine likes to say, just a stone's throw from slavery, endeavored in 1906 to start an organization that would stand the test of time through relationships, through mentorship, through service, through business, through trials and errors. They made it very clear that alpha is a standard by
mm,
which I can live. So my desire to connect with like-minded men in this fraternity, it spans our desire to serve others through mentorship, through volunteerism in our community, through service to other individuals and other people in our community. And honestly, as it says, right, very simply put, manly deeds, scholarship, and love of mankind. I'm always going to want to be the best and the brightest and the smartest. I'm always going to want to make sure that I'm standing as a man should in my community. And I'm always going to show love for my fellow person. So that's very easy for me to follow.
No, I love that. And also, too, why are historically Black fraternities still essential institutions for leadership development and community impact?
It's one of those things that I think, Michaela, we have to be honest about where do these things occur.
Mm.
And I think sometimes within our own community, we have to question these things. But if it's not Alpha, if it's not AKA, if it's not Omega, then where? If it doesn't occur at HBCUs, then where? If we don't do it, then who will? If we don't do it right now, and that's the question at any time, if we don't do it right now, then when shall it occur? So I think the reality is that HBCUs, the Divine Nine, many of the social aid and pleasure clubs in a city like New Orleans, they've always stood to ensure that young African Americans understood that there was a path to leadership, that there was a place for them to do more than just be at the bottom rung of the ladder. And so it continues to give opportunity, it continues to give rise, and it continues to be a shining light for so many to understand that we're not meant to be at the end. We're not meant to be second. We're not second class citizens. That we can just like anybody else go forth and prosper and be well and do well and lead.
I think that's really important too, especially how you touched on that we can lead. And
Yeah.
also too, what do communities need most from academic leaders today?
That's a very interesting question. Communities need for academic leaders to come out of the ivory tower.
Mm.
I don't. I'm as much as I love sitting in my office, I much prefer being in a community at a community meeting, working with individuals who are on the ground, who I can bring whatever skills I have, right, to whatever task they have. And they can take whatever thing they're working on to help me inform what I should be doing in the classroom, right? Um, there's no way, shape, or form in the world we live in that we should not continue to have the connection between what I think about as a street therapist, someone who's working in the community who may not have the training I have, but they're trying to make sure people are healthy, make sure people are taken care of. There's never a time where we shouldn't be able to connect. We should always have that shared interest. We should always have that shared desire, and we should always have that shared goal. I
Mhm.
always think about this idealism of Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King, right? For so long, we were told that they were enemies, they hated each other, that they didn't like each other. And that was all a farce.
Mm.
And what I tell my students in a very simple way is they were two men with the same mission. They just had different methods. And that's okay. It's fine to have different methods, but we need to have a shared mission. And
Mm.
so for me, that's what it comes down to. We should all be endeavoring to have the same mission. So, another idea, right? The United States military has how many branches? Five. The Army, the Navy, the military, the Marines Corps, the Navy, and Air Force, right? I say one of those twice. Different methods, but same mission to protect the United States. But they don't all do the same thing. And so we should all be thinking about what skill set we have that we need to hone, that we need to perfect so that we can be a party to the mission, so that we can support the mission. But we shouldn't all have the same thing. We can't all be the same way.
I agree. And I think, like, as you touched on too, like, it's okay doing the same thing, but you might do it a little bit differently, having a different method, but we are all getting to the same end goal.
Yeah.
Um, and also, too, as we're looking ahead for the future, when you imagine the future of academia, what does leadership rooted
Mm.
in feeling truly look like?
I think right now we're in a very interesting space in academia. And I don't know if we know what that leadership is going to look like. There was a time when leadership in institutional higher education were held to a standard of being able to be truthful and honest about what they were assessing and evaluating in the world we live in. I don't know if that's going to be the norm going forward. I could very well see that there's a space where there's going to be some conniptions about what leaders can and cannot say. What I would like to see is that leaders maintain their autonomy in being able to call things as they are and not as so intelligent they should be. So my hope would be that leadership in spaces at HBCUs and in Black communities are able to tell the truth about what's happening and what needs to happen to address those issues, whether they be iniquities or whether they be successes, right? And that we stay away from falling from the fallacy of our inherent believed or taught inferiority, right? As a leader, I don't teach deficiency models. Everything I teach is from a success model. It's from a healthy model. What should a young Black man be doing at various stages of life? It ain't about not being white. It's about what should you be doing. We should be pursuing education, pursuing physical health and fitness, pursuing our own intellectual stimulation, pursuing our own intellectual and emotional conformity and consensus, right? And so it's kind of moving through all of those things, but if leadership does not sustain that and maintain that, that's the potential outcome is that we won't have those. So for me, leaders got to be able to stand firm on what they know is true. And unfortunately, that might mean some backlash every now and again. That might mean a little bit of problem for some people.
I agree. And also, too, what advice would you give to emerging Black male scholars and practitioners?
Mm. I hate to say this, but the first one is that we have to be mindful of our physical appearance.
Mm,
Not that you have to not be yourself, but there's a point in time where, and I had a young man I was mentoring. He came into my office and he had a very um, loud odor that he walked in with. Loved the man dearly. And I told her, I said, I need to understand something. You can't come to my office smelling like that. What you mean? I said, you're going to make us both look bad.
mm.
I said, it's not that I'm telling you you can't do what you were doing, but if you're going to come and visit me, I need you to remember that I am a professor in this space and I have to be mindful how people look at me. So I shared that with that young person. And I think he then understood that I wasn't saying I'm judging him. What I'm saying was we have to think about um our appearances, right? And so for me, I'm always just mindful of how we present ourselves. I have two earrings in my ear. I'm a larger Black. I got tattoos. I don't have a problem with being me, but I also love wearing a suit and I also love being the sharpest guy in the room, both where I dress or me being on stage having a conversation or presenting. And so to me, that becomes important, right? Making sure that we present ourselves in ways that we want to be presented. I've done presentations to large crowds in Jordans and jeans and a sports coat, and the same thing I do in the suit. But I get to determine that, and that's why sometimes it's important that we have to wait until we've achieved a certain level of accomplishment that we can then foster those appearances or those looks, right? I don't have to code switch in my speeches as much anymore as when I was younger, right? I can kind of get on stage and speak how I want to because I've earned that space. And so I think sometimes we have to be mindful of what is our true presentation, right? I have to be aware of how I present myself to someone and the potential for how they may receive that, right? And that's been important to me. I'm not gonna say it's important to others, but it's important to me because I've had people see me in the suit and they say they wasn't coming because they didn't know how I was gonna be dressed and they show up and I go, yeah, it's not about you, it's about me. The knowledge and information doesn't change, just the way it's packaged.
I agree with that, especially when you said and touched on that you might have to wait until you get to a certain stage in your career to then be able to maneuver a little bit more freely with how you dress. But when you're first starting out, showing up in a suit, showing up
Yep.
in, with your dress shoes, like
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
just not there yet. Um, and
yeah,
that will like produce for people to take you more serious.
yeah. And those are things you just have to be aware of. I mean, those are things that my mentors told me. Hey, Brian, you might be presenting to a group full of white people. And do you want the immediate reaction to you to be based upon your attire or how you speak? So I have to disarm the crowd. I have to present in such a way that they become endeared to me. And then I can say whatever I want, right? because too often, what do we say about first impression? That's the last impression.
Mm.
But yeah.
And I think also too, what continues to give you hope?
Oh, the next generation. Oh, there's some days, Makaila, I wake up and oh, we lost. Oh, it's over. We're done. And then something will happen. I'll see a younger person. I'll see a mentee. I'll get a message, and then I'll be like, "Oh yeah, we got it. We got some good ones. They're gonna keep up the fight." And so the next generation, when I see those with joy and hope and desire in their eyes and their heart and their actions, I feel good. I feel comfortable.
I think that continues to give me hope too. Um,
Yeah,
and also too, I just want to say thank you so much for your honesty, your vulnerability, and your unwavering commitment to telling the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Your work, especially to me, it reminds us that leadership doesn't always come with a title, a podium, or a syllabus. Sometimes it comes from the words that reach people where systems never do. Through poetry, publishing, and presence, you've shown us that culture is a classroom, that healing is a form of education, and that masculinity can hold accountability and compassion at the same time. Your impact proves that excellence doesn't have to be detached from emotion and that growth begins when we're brave enough to feel. And to our listeners, if today's conversation moved you, stay connected with Breaking the Silence and Angels Protection Inc. as we continue elevating voices that teach, heal, and transform culture from the inside out. And always remember, silence protects systems, not people. So let's keep breaking it together. And if I want to give you the chance also too, if you want to share your social media on how people can stay connected to you.
yeah. But Michaela, I first want to thank you for the work you're doing and giving me this opportunity to chat with you and connect and look forward to the work that we can potentially do together, that we're going to do together. Continue to shine a light on what you're doing, continue to lead as you lead, and also continue to be grounded in what you do. That there's a reason why you do it, and those are that you're helping are going to be better for it. With that being said, you can find me, Dr. Brian L. Turner, PhD, whichever one. On all social media, it's my name, Brian Turner. On Facebook, it's NOJAGR 504, which stands for New Orleans Jaguar 504, back when I was at Southern playing football. And then I'm on Instagram just as Brian Turner. That's the only two places. I know, of course, LinkedIn has become a little bit more social media-ish, but hey, but LinkedIn is still Brian L. Turner. With that being said, that's where you connect with me. You can always reach me via email at Dr. Turner 504, Dr. Turner 504 at gmail.com.
And please, guys, please use the opportunity to connect with him. He is a wealth of knowledge. So I just want to say thank you so much again for joining the podcast. And everyone, like, comment, and subscribe on the video. And until the next episode, bye, guys.
Be safe. Thank you, babe. Appreciate you.